to the Release Show. I'm your host, Brittany Skyers. On today's show, I will be speaking with Chanelle. Chanelle is an accredited cognitive behavioral psychotherapist by profession with years of clinical experience. She has recently embarked on her Clinical Psychology Doctorate and has worked in different NHS trusts across England, giving her a broad understanding of the experiences and diversity of other population groups. Chanelle currently works as a cognitive behavioral psychotherapist in the Counselling and Mental Wellbeing Department at a university in Birmingham. She has worked with various complex mental health and substance misuse disorders and has developed an area of expertise working with anxiety. Let's welcome Chanelle Rose.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Brittany.
Yes, thanks for coming on this show. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm excited to talk today. I think I've got some useful information to share with everyone.
Great. So how is London?
Well, I'm actually in Birmingham. So Birmingham is like the second city of England. It's not too bad. It's 5:30 here now. Lockdown restrictions are kind of easing up even more here. So we're slowly allowed to go out more and more. So it's not too bad. It's all right. It's a gloomy day though. Sad and cold out here.
Aww. Well, I would love to be over there. I love England, London. Yes.
You're in Florida?
Yes. Florida is pretty. Yeah, it's pretty here. You know, the beaches and all the hot weather. I know it gets cold over there and it rains a lot, right?
Yes. It's been raining today. It's not great.
Oh, I do remember that when I went to London that it rained all the time.
Did you come here for a trip?
Yes, I came for a trip for a job that I had some years ago. Yeah. I really love it. The people are so sweet.
Yes, we are quite great British people.
Yes. All right, so let's jump right into it. The year 2020 has seen billions of people going through a severe mental and emotional challenge. As an expert in cognitive behavioral psychotherapy, how much emotional impact do you think the situation is having on people?
I think for a lot of different people, everyone will experience this pandemic in a different way. So there's so much impact it could have had on people's emotional and mental health. But I think some of the most common mental health problems that people will probably be experiencing is depression, feeling sad, especially as there's been such a big change to routine right now. People who have lost jobs, who have lost people to the virus. There's so many changes that have happened to our routine and our normal way of living that it's naturally would have had an impact on people's emotion and caused depression. People might be feeling anxious, which is a totally normal way to feel right now, and stressed, worried about what's to happen, what's to come, stressed about how they're going to, pay bills, how they're going to manage their children when working from home. So many different factors and stress at the moment that I think will have a massive impact on people's mental health and emotional health right now. So it could depend. It really depends. Each person is different. Some people might be managing great and not really having any problems at all. Some people might be really struggling right now. But I think trauma, this could be a very traumatic experience for someone as well. So there might be some symptoms of trauma as well during this time. But it really depends. So many different people, different impacts, and how they could be feeling right now.
Yes, I agree. Honestly, 2020 has really been a very painful year, but it's sad for those who have lost their lives and things of that nature, their jobs, but 2020 really hasn't impacted my life on that level, and I'm thankful for it. But just to see it hurting those who are close to me, it just really hurts me, And I've tried to help people as much as I can do this time because I know that we're all affected by it in some sort. But I was blessed to keep my job and those kinds of things, so I was able to continue to maintain. But I knew I wanted to do what was best and help people. If I saw that they needed some help, So 2020, we're gonna get through it, but it's different years. Yes. Many people are losing their jobs while others can't pay their rent. How do you think that this will impact their mind about getting the courage to cope with the situation and moving forward?
I think for, a lot of people, they may have really struggled with perseverance and resilience during this time.
Mm-hmm.
And they may be really struggling to kind of keep going, especially when there's so many things that are going against them, like losing their jobs,
Yes.
maybe losing their homes, bills piling up as a result of it. And it's understandable that during this time, people are probably feeling unmotivated. Probably feeling that they don't want to get out of bed, don't want to get up and go. That drive and that motivation is it's lost right now because of all the stress that they're experiencing and they're under. But I think for a lot of people to realize that, it's unprecedented. This is a word that's been used a lot in the UK media anyway. Unprecedented times. And I don't think there's a right or wrong way to be feeling right now. I think everyone is going to react and respond in a different way. And I think taking time and patience with yourself, understanding what's going on for yourself and how you're feeling, in order to learn the ways that's going to help you to get through it. But yeah, it's awful. People are losing their job. But take each day as it comes. Try to remain present, because it's easy when you've lost your job to be in the future worrying, thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay these bills? Like, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? And I think it's really important to kind of separate your worries if you can. In life, we have two types of worries. We have like hypothetical worries and we have practical worries. The hypothetical worries tend to be those future-based worries, like what if this happens? What if that happens? What if XYZ happens? And we never can find a solution or an answer to that hypothetical worry because it's outside of our control. We can worry, we can think, but it doesn't actually solve that worry. But we have practical worries, and practical worries are the things like, okay, I actually have this bill, or I actually need to get another job. Those are the things that you can do something about. So separate the type of worries you're having and focus on the practical stuff, the practical things that you can do, rather than the hypothetical things that are outside of your control and your ability to do anything about.
Thank you for that information. That's powerful. As an expert in behavior, what are those things you think we should expect from other people and how we can deal with them in such a time like we are right now?
Yeah, I think, again, it really just does depend because, for, like you said earlier, this time hasn't really impacted you and your family, thankfully. And, fortunately for me as well, it's been the same. I haven't had a very close loved one experience COVID or pass away from it, thankfully. Everyone in my immediate circle has been able to kind of retain their jobs and retain their work. So I've been very fortunate and been very blessed, as has my family. But I know that everyone. And I think it really does depend on how 2020 has impacted you, which will determine how you then respond, what your behaviour response will be. For some people, it might be that they begin isolating themselves. They just don't want to see anyone. They don't want to do anything. Avoidance. So maybe and that's part of the anxiety and the fear as well. So maybe actually avoiding going out. So avoiding doing things outside the home because they're worried about the fear of the virus. They might be really short and snappy, irritable with people, with friends, with their family, with their loved ones. And it's not necessarily because they're frustrated with you, but maybe just frustrated with how they're feeling. So that might mean that they're more argumentative, that they might be less willing to talk to people, might be frustrated. So I think it depends, but those are some of the common behaviours I think would be to look out for if someone is struggling during this time, if they're isolating themselves, if they're avoiding, or if you notice a significant change in their personality or their behaviour, if they're suddenly very irritable, suddenly very snappy, suddenly very argumentative, which is quite different from how they are usually. Those are some things to look out for.
And I agree because recently, on Facebook, I have seen like so many statuses from people that I normally wouldn't see before. And I feel like the pandemic has really impacted people's mental state. You know, it's taken them to the point of depression, anxiety, and just feeling lonely, because I can already see it just by someone's status, like, wow, you know, this person is hurting. And so that's why I wanted to bring you in, because I want you to give them advice on what they can do to take care of themselves and their mental state, because it's very important. If you're not healthy mentally, you're not going to be able to do anything. You're going to go crazy. And so I think we all need to take a mental break and take care of ourselves. Self-care is very important. And so, yes, that's great advice.
Yeah.
There are protests worldwide to try and fight against Black people being killed. What emotional impact do you think this will have on the Black community around the world if something is not done to curtail the trend?
I think it's been such a difficult time with the whole, Black Lives Matter movement, which has happened during the middle of pandemic. And whilst this has always been an ongoing problem for us, I think it's been even more difficult that it's been during this time as well. And I was speaking about this a few weeks ago, or probably a couple of months ago now. And I think for a lot of people, it's traumatic. Witnessing something like this, especially for your own people, it's traumatic. And when we experience trauma, that can have a variety of ways on how people feel mentally and emotionally. Again, it can be some of those kind of common mental health problems that I talked about earlier. So they might start feeling depressed, might start feeling anxious, might start feeling stressed as well, but also classic PTSD symptoms. So PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And we don't always get that with trauma. So trauma is a traumatic event or incident, and as a result, we can develop PTSD. So with PTSD, that's when we will experience some of the anger, the depression, the anxiety, but also it's characterized by, flashbacks of, difficult incidences. So seeing the people die, kind of those videos that have been going around on social media, that going around and around in your mind. There could be nightmares as well, or, really uncomfortable dreams that people are experiencing during this time. And I would always encourage people to talk, because that's a really difficult thing that I think we don't do sometimes. We just kind of get up and go. We continue. We carry on like things are normal, when it's not normal for people to be killed at the hands of, police all the time. It's not normal for us to be experiencing that. And I think it's really important that we as a community talk, and we educate ourselves and educate others on how we can actually begin to bring about change in this area. Because unless something changes, the emotional impacts that we experience as people won't change. There will always be depression, there will always be anxiety, there will always be trauma and stress, unless the actual traumatic incidents are stopping and are ending. But it's a difficult time. What we need to do is for us to stop being killed. But
Yes.
until that happens, talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about your experiences. Talk about how it feels, how it's impacting you personally, the fears that you have for your family, your children that you're raising. Talk about it. And that's a really good way to manage traumatic times like this that we're going through.
Yes, I agree. We need to talk about it more. And I also think that a lot of people don't really understand the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that they're doing. I know maybe not everybody is doing their job with the movement, and maybe it's because it doesn't have like a real leader that's leading it, where people are thinking that is to divide or Black people to take control. But I honestly get from it that they just want to be treated equally. Like we all just want to be treated equally instead of one group of people superior to the other. So if people did a lot more research about it, I think that their minds would change. But people are so quick to just judge instead of do research on things because of what they see in the media. And I was very surprised, even the job that I work at now, every week we're going to be watching this YouTube series that talks about that. And I was very shocked that my job decided to even open up that door. And then one of the ladies at my job even spoke and said, you know what, as a white woman, I didn't even know that these things were even going on. And so I like that. Let's open this conversation and let's just love each other. I mean, just show more love and compassion instead of negativity. If the world was, would just change and love each other and show more compassion, we wouldn't even be at this stage in our lives. But, we have to deal with it. And the way we deal with it is by talking about it and by getting involved. And, when somebody doesn't understand, just kind of give your point of view so that they can see what you're feeling, because I think a lot of times as these conversations go unnoticed and unseen, and that people don't really express themselves when it comes to the killings, because to be honest with you, I would hear so much that you get numb to it. Like you begin to get numb to it because it's keep happening. And it's like, another hashtag and another hashtag, and you just become numb to it. And I'm wrong for becoming numb to it, so I should speak out about it. But it's like, what can I do, and I'm doing some research myself to try to see what I can do to help out. But it's just, you become so numb to these situations, and it's sad. It's so sad.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's why it's so important for us to talk about it, because there are so many people that have said to me as well that I just didn't know. I just didn't know that this is what was happening, that this is the experiences of people. So talking about it is so important. And I think before we can begin to change, we need to talk. So people need to be aware of it. But I think we're also at the point where ignorance can't be tolerated now. Like in a time like this in 2020, ignorance is no longer something that we can allow. So I think it's really important for people to also take the ownership for themselves, to educate themselves on what's going on and how they can help, how they can be a positive support in bringing about change in society. But I think, like you said, a lot of people are miseducated about what Black Lives Matter is. It isn't saying that Black lives are more important than any other lives. It's just saying that we deserve to have equal opportunity, equal respect, like every other ethnicity has. So yeah, no, I think talking about it is the first step.
Yes.
Definitely.
And we're going to continue to talk about it.
Yes.
Children are also showing symptoms of anxiety, stress, worry, and fear due to the global pandemic. What is your professional advice to parents on handling the situation and helping their kids overcome the anxiety?
For this one, I think it's a really difficult one to answer, because it's not difficult to answer, it's difficult for parents to adapt. Because I think as a parent, it's natural, it's understandable that you would want to do things that will help your child get rid of their anxiety, get rid of their emotional distress. And that may mean sometimes that you perpetuate that cycle. So it means that that child maybe never gets to learn how to manage that stressful situation, never gets to learn what happens when they go through a stressful situation. They never get to learn the kind of resilient skills that we need to develop as people, just in order to kind of cope in a society that we live in, in England and in America. So I think the first thing for parents, I would definitely say, is just to be aware of the cycle that you can sometimes get to your child, not wanting them to actually experience anxiety or difficult emotions. Because the goal isn't to get rid of anxiety, it's to help children to manage it. So as an example, if a child was really scared about, I don't know, going to school, as a parent, you're not going to say, okay, you're not going to go to school then. You're still going to have to send them to school, aren't you? But there's certain things that you'd be like, okay, you don't have to do that, or we won't bring you around that, or you don't have to face this thing. And I think it's about really acknowledging what that child is anxious about, what they're fearful about, and trying to talk through it with them. Sometimes we want to treat children like they don't understand what they have. A great level of understanding, kids, especially in this day and age, just so smart. So
They are.
So talk to them, actually talk about, how they're feeling, what their fears are, talk through their fears with them, what they're, with this coronavirus, there might be children that are worrying about losing their parents to coronavirus or someone getting unwell that they love, don't just ignore it. Don't just say, oh, it's never going to happen, or, don't worry about that, because that's dismissing their fears, dismissing their emotions, and it's making them feel like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. I'm not allowed to feel this way. And I'd say, instead of that, talk to them about it, allow them to actually express their fears, their feelings, their worries, their thoughts, and support them through it. So again, not trying to take it away, just saying, maybe, I know that you're scared and I'm going to help you through this. I know that you're worried about this, but I'm here to support you. Those kind of responses and phrases when children, when they're anxious or worried about something, is a much better way to kind of approach it, rather than dismissing it or not even allowing them to talk about it at all.
I think that's great advice. Really great advice.
Because sometimes, as parents, it's natural. You want to kind of tell them, oh, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. We can't do that. It's really unrealistic to do that sometimes. So when that thing that you said never happens, that would never happen, actually happens, then what?
Right.
Then you really put in a tough situation. Then kind of explain to that child that thing that you said was never going to happen. Actually, it has happened, and now we've got to deal with it. Rather, talk to them about it in advance. Okay, this is what we'll do. This is how we cope. You're strong. You're resilient. You can do this. You've got the strength to get through this. Talk it through. And I feel like so far today I've said talking, and talking is so important, and it's a big part of therapy and managing mental health and emotional well-being, talking. Because I think too often as a community, especially as Black people as a community, we don't talk. We really need to work on some more.
I agree. And I think that parents should have conversations with their kids more often, just to see it, because sometimes, kids harbor their feelings inside. And they don't even want to tell you as their parent, they rather tell their friends and things like that. But I think it's important to build that open communication with your child, so that if they're going through something or they're feeling anxiety or fearful, that they're able to tell you and not harbor it inside. And then it becomes to affect their mental state. And then they start to act out and do things that they're not supposed to be doing, which makes the situation even worse.
Yeah, definitely. So I think having planned time where you can talk to your children is good. So it might just even be something that, every time you have dinner as a family, or you one-on-one, however you have dinner, that might be a time where it's time for us to talk. So we'll talk about how we're feeling during that time, or it might be that before we get up in the morning or really start the day, we talk about our day and how we're feeling and our worries about the day, so that that child starts with a positive attitude and mind frame in terms of how they're going to start it. Or at the end of the day, like recapping the day and how they felt, what went wrong, what went well. Just having a set time that your child knows to expect is a time that they can talk to you, would always be helpful, because kids need routine and need they need structure. So if you have a regular time where they know, this is the time I can talk to mom, this is the time I can talk to dad, it's going to really help them and their mental health and well-being.
I agree. We know that older people are more likely to fall sick and become a victim of the coronavirus. We also know that this fact is causing panic among the age group, leading to stress that is negatively affecting their immune system. What measures do you think family members should be taking to help seniors improve their emotional and mental health?
I think some of the things that I mentioned about the children is also relevant to the older adults. And I think that's what I was really thinking about when thinking about this question prior to the show, because with older adults, it's understandable that they're older, their immune system is not going to be as great as younger people. They are going to be more prone to, unfortunately, developing different types of sicknesses and illnesses. But I think, again, it's not about trying to take away their fear or take away that, or kind of dismiss the chance that that could actually happen, because unfortunately we live in an imperfect world, and there is a chance that they could get unwell and they could develop something like coronavirus. So I think, don't try to ignore or minimize their fears. Actually address it with them, but practically think about ways that you can help to build up them and to make sure that they're taking care of them. mentally. So, like I said, talking is always great. Making sure they have time and space to talk to you about just life in general, not just their fears, but just in life. Making sure that they have a balanced and varied kind of routine to their life. And I know that's really difficult right now with lockdown, and I don't know how Florida is right now or where you are is right now with the current lockdown restrictions, but we're allowed to go out a little bit more here now in the UK. So of course, abiding by the guidelines in your country, wherever you are, do as much as you can. Make sure you've got a varied routine. Make sure that you are doing exercise. Make sure that you are seeing family and friends where possible. Make sure that you are taking time just to read or to watch your favorite TV show. Making sure the structure and a varied routine, because if they're at home all day, every day by themselves, with the TV on, with the news on, worrying, feeling stressed, it's not going to help them. It's not going to help their mental health. It's not going to help them physically. So give them the space to talk. Make sure they've got a good, varied structure and routine to their life, and help them to take care of themselves mentally as well as physically.
I have a heart for older people. I just love them.
Yeah, so do
I
I.
love older people. They're so wise. They can tell you things that you never, thought of. And I miss my grandma, the one that my mom's mom, whom I had a great, great, great relationship with growing up. And I remember just going in her room and talking to her about anything. And, that just connected me with older people. And every time I see older people, I just have such a heart, it's just, they're so sweet, and it's like they're kids again. It's like they're going back to being kids again. So
They love that. Every time you really sit and take the time to talk to an older adult, they love it. They love it.
do. They really do.
So do take the time to do that.
Yes, people do. I encourage you to do that with if you still have your grandmas and grandpas, please sit down and talk to them and get information to help you get wiser as well, because it's very important.
Yeah.
Because once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah. And also, even if it's not, your relative, an older person, that older person that you see on the street every day, to take a moment just to, smile, ask them how their day is, with your mask or whatever you need to do social distancing wise. But, really reaching out to people that you might see all the time, like in your local area or neighborhood, and talking to them as well. Especially because a lot of them sometimes are isolated and they are lonely, and they're craving that human connection and wanting to talk to someone. So you just taking the time out to say, hey, how's your day, would make a big, massive difference, I think.
Yes, a big difference. Knowing something makes it easier to handle and less scary to confront. What measures do you think people should be taking to create awareness and build confidence that we surely will defeat this virus?
Well, I think when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about surely defeat the virus, the last part of the question. And going back to what I mentioned earlier in terms of hypothetical and practical worries, I think coronavirus is one of those hypothetical things, in that it's outside of our control. We just don't know how this virus is going to develop or not develop. We already know that suddenly we were in a worldwide pandemic, which we weren't really expecting. We already know that we've been in lockdown measures of different kinds that we weren't really expecting. So I think if one thing coronavirus has shown us is that we just don't know. It's a bit unpredictable. But I think, having said that, there will be a point where we'll get past this. We'll no longer be in the middle of this pandemic. But I think whilst we're going through it, it's not about worrying about when it's going to end or wondering about when it's going to end. It's about living life in this moment, taking good advantage of being present, being in the here and now, thinking, okay, we're in this pandemic. We can't get out of it right now. What can I do to make sure that I'm still living life to the best of my ability, that I'm still fulfilling my dreams, I'm still fulfilling my goals, that life doesn't stop because we're going through this pandemic. And to an extent, yes, it has to stop in different areas and different, ways, because I know for a lot of people, including myself, I'm still working from home. But it doesn't mean that life stops and that I can't do else outside of that. So we can't have certainty in when this is going to end. It will end, as all things do.
Yes.
But don't worry about when it will end. Don't worry about what's going to happen in the future. Just take the time to be present in the moment. Practice mindfulness if needed. And mindfulness is about being present, being mindful, and rather than worrying about the future and what could happen, because we just don't know. It's unpredictable. And worrying about it's not going to make you feel any better.
Yes, and worrying is not good for your health either.
No, it's not. It's not.
The death of famous people like Kobe Bryant and Chadwick Boseman has come as a shock to many people. Some much so that those who don't know them are getting seriously affected when they hear the news of their demise. How do you think people can handle such things and overcome their emotional stress?
Yeah, I just feel like 2020 has been such a whirlwind, hasn't it? Coronavirus, loss of these famous people. I think what would be really important for everyone to know is that it's totally okay to mourn the death of a famous person. Because I know I've seen on some social media posts like you didn't even know them, or why do you feel upset, like you had no connection to them. But I think people have connections to famous people for lots of different reasons. That maybe they were an inspiration, or they help them to strive for their own goals or dreams. For whatever reason that person feels a connection to that person, it is totally okay to mourn the loss of that person, even if you didn't know them, even if they are this famous person. So I think that would be the first thing I really want to say. It's okay for you to be feeling sad or upset right now about the loss of Chadwick Boseman and Kobe Bryant and other people that have been lost this year as well. And I think really connect with like-minded people, like people who are also mourning the loss of that person as well. Not that you can wallow together in pity, but to actually talk through like what that person meant to you, why you're so upset by the loss, what it really meant to you. Especially, Chadwick Boseman of the Black Panther. He was an icon for so many people in our community, and I think just talking to people about what he meant to you is going to really help you to go through that process of mourning. And remember that grief is a process. So some days will be completely fine, and other days it may be more difficult to kind of manage. That's okay as well. Don't feel bad about that. Normalize the different emotions that you may be in one moment. Being totally fine and happy-go-lucky, as we say in the UK, but other days you might be feeling not so good. That's okay. However you're feeling is okay, because everyone processes grief in different ways. So give yourself time and permission to mourn that person. And like I said, connect with people that also are feeling that loss and share your feelings, so that you can feel supported. And especially when Kobe died and when Chadwick died, it was a media whirlwind. It was everywhere. It was all over social media, it's all over TV, and I think be mindful of how much of that you receive. So if you need to plug out, if you need to stop surfing Instagram, come off Facebook for a moment, just so that you start receiving news that is painful for you. And I know for myself, when I shared about Chadwick Boseman on my own Instagram, I definitely gave a trigger warning. I was like, I'm going to share some posts right now, guys. So if you think that's going to be too difficult for you to see right now, then don't go past this point. And I think we should do that more as people, because sometimes posts can be really difficult for people to see. So, yeah, plug out social media if you need, and be mindful of how much news you're receiving about that death of that person. And as much as possible, maintain your regular routine.
I agree with that. Plugging out is very important. And that's going to get me to my next question. Like never before, news and media have the source of information in triggering severe mental health issues. As someone who understands the human mind, what advice would you give people on how to handle the news?
Plug out. Stop watching it. No, I think it's important for us to remain connected to the news and what's going on in the world and in the countries that we live in. But I think we need to be very mindful about the amount of news that we receive. Because I know some people, they come to me and they say they're feeling really anxious and they're feeling really stressed, but they're watching the morning news, the lunchtime news, the evening news, the nighttime news, and I'm like, are you surprised when like you're receiving all of this bad news all day, every day? and you're wondering why you're feeling upset or you're anxious or you're stressed. So I think be mindful of how much news you do receive. By all means, receive some, because it's important to remain connected and aware. But if you're watching news 3 times a day, cut down, go to one. If you're watching it twice a week and still that's stressful for you, cut down to once a week. And also use reliable news sources. I don't know if you have in America very often, if you use WhatsApp. Do you use WhatsApp?
Not often, but sometimes.
WhatsApp is very big in the UK. So it's like one of our main messaging sources. And during the middle of lockdown, there were constantly messages going around all day, every day. This is going to happen. Be careful. Make sure you lock your doors today. Make sure you avoid doing this. Make sure, the army's coming. All of these random and bizarre stories that would just go around in like a chain on WhatsApp. And people would believe it. People would take it as truth and then be really scared that something was going to happen, or the army was going to come. And that's not a reliable news source. WhatsApp is not a reliable news source. I don't know what the equivalent would be in America, but be mindful of where you receive your news from and make sure you use a reliable source, because sometimes people will just say things to get people scared and to get people anxious and stressed, but there's absolutely no truth in it whatsoever. So plug out when needed, reduce the amount of news that you actually receive, and definitely make sure that you use a reliable news source. And going back to what I mentioned earlier, be mindful of what's actually in your control and what you can actually do something about. Because we can say about all of these things that we're hearing on the news, but that doesn't change anything in that particular situation. All it changes is how you feel. Now you're feeling anxious. Now you're feeling stressed. But that doesn't actually change the situation. So be mindful of what's in your power, what's in your control.
I agree. I do not like the news. I do not watch the news. I refuse to watch it. I feel like everything on there is negative, 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 negative. And I don't want to feed my mind that negativity, because I really truly believe that whatever you deposit into your mind is what you put out into the universe. So if you feed yourself all this negativity, you're not going to feel good. You're going to feel, bad. And I noticed, like, I would watch the news sometimes, and even when the pandemic happened, my husband would have the news on all the time. So we would watch this news. And when we stopped watching it like that, we noticed how much better we felt as humans, our health, our mind. And before, it was like we were freaking out. I mean, we were doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the house, spraying the knobs, doing this, doing that. And it's like, once we stop depositing that information into our minds, we were just relaxed and chill, and it felt so much better. And I totally agree. I don't like the news. I just refuse to watch it like that. I'll hear from our coworkers when things are happening. We had 2 hurricanes that was supposed to be headed our way. I knew nothing about it. I'm telling you, there's reasons why you should watch it, but I just feel like if the news was so much more positive, that the health of everyone's mental state would be so much better, you know? But people love negativity. I don't know why. Why is that? Do you know
I don't know, but I think also with news, it's a business, isn't it? And negative news sells, unfortunately. So I think that's why it's always so popular on the news programs. But also because I guess the things that they're reporting on is actually negative. There are kind of really unfortunate negative things happening in the world. But you're definitely right. It does have a massive impact on how you feel and what you'll think about and what you're worrying about. So definitely, reduce it. And for yourself, it doesn't sound like you're watching it very often. But I would still say get some, make sure you get your news source from somewhere, even if it's someone that's relaying it to you. But it's a reputable relay. So they're not just saying, "Oh, did you see on the shade room today?" or whatever. It's actually reliable news source that they're relaying to you, even if you don't want to watch it yourself, because it does have an impact on how you feel. For me, I watch the news maybe once or twice a week, just so that I just know what's going on in the world. But I don't watch it every day. No, not so.
Maybe I'll start doing that. Because when I'm at work, the news Miami Herald will pop up at the on my computer, and I just hit dismiss. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear it, I'm like, all things positive. That's what I want to hear. Stress, anxiety, and loneliness has driven many people into substance. How do you think people can overcome the temptation in this period?
I think during this time, maybe alcohol especially has something that has increased as a way of people just coping with how they're feeling and what's going on in the world. It's like an escapism almost. But I think for people, the first thing I would say is really to be really accountable, be really realistic, and be really honest about your temptations and about the struggles that you're experiencing. Because a common thing when people are struggling with substance misuse is that they underplay or they belittle kind of how severe their problem is that they actually have. So, oh, it's fine. I just enjoy a drink every so often. Oh, it's fine. I just dabble here and there. And they really kind of underplay it a lot. So I think the first thing with, really overcoming the temptation is to really be honest. Be honest about the temptations and the struggles that you're experiencing. And then have an accountability partner. So have someone that will literally hold you accountable and someone that you will allow to hold you accountable. Because sometimes we have accountability partners, but if they come and tell us something, you're not meant to be doing this, we want to have an attitude and we want to tell them, you can tell me nothing. But no, that's what that person's there for. They're there to hold you accountable with whatever substances it is that you're struggling with. So have an accountability partner, be honest about your struggles and your experiences, and let that person know so that they can help and support you with that. And for different people with different struggles, it could be a variety of different things that you do to overcome it. If you struggle, on payday, when you got paid, and that's the day you go out and you buy lots of alcohol or drugs, whatever it might be, arrange something to happen on that day. So maybe that you definitely meet a friend, or you definitely see someone, or even that your money goes into a different account on payday. Do things to plan and prepare for these temptations, because the temptations will come, but you can plan for it, you can prepare for it, and you can put in steps that will help you to overcome that temptation in a better way. But I think the advice will really depend on what struggles the person's having. But the first thing is about definitely being honest and having an accountability partner, and taking some time to sit with yourself and thinking, okay, what are my triggers? What leads me to wanting to drink more or to take drugs more? How can I work on these triggers? What do I need to do to change these triggers? What are my temptations? When do I struggle the most? Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Is it at night time? Being aware of all of those factors helps you to really be prepared to overcome the temptation when the temptation comes. So really sitting with yourself and, really being honest with yourself, like I said, about what's going on for you and how you feel so that you can overcome these temptations. And if needed, seek additional support. I know there's services here in the UK, and I'm sure in America as well, that you can access if you're really struggling with your alcohol and drug use. So if needed, seek that support and service so that you can have that extra help to get you through.
Yes, I think accountability partner is very important in all aspects of your life. Like, not just because you're having a problem with substance abuse, but just on different levels. If you want to lose weight and you're not the kind of person who likes to work out, you need that accountability partner to help you, push you to that level. So I definitely think we all should have one of those.
You're definitely right about the accountability partner. I have one in exercise for working out, but that's why I said don't catch an attitude with them, because I know when my person asks me, have you worked out today? I'm like, don't ask me no questions. So you just allow them to keep you accountable as well.
Yes. Like my husband tries to help me work out with him, and I can't. Yeah. I don't know why. Like, I just can't. Like, I would love to, but I don't know what it is. It's like he's my husband, and now he's trying to teach me how to work out. Like, no.
So exercise is actually so great for mental health as well. So I really, really struggle with it myself. So I totally understand where you're coming from. But exercise is so good for our mental health. So trying to be active, even if it's just going for a walk it will have a positive impact on how you feel. Because when we're exercising, endorphins, feel good hormones, are being released into our body. So it does have a positive impact on how you feel. So start exercising, people. It helps.
It does. I will say that when I was working out, I did feel different. You know, you have more energy and you feel great. You feel great afterwards, to be honest. Yeah. It's a lot of work depending on, you know, what level of exercises you're doing, but it really does change your mental state. It helps you.
Yeah.
So is there any more information you'd like to give people about mental health?
Well, I guess I would just say a little bit about, because you said what I do is CBT. So with CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, it's like one of those practical type of therapies. So it is talking about your experiences and your mental health and what you're going through and how you're feeling, but it's also a lot about recognizing what you're thinking. So your thoughts, your beliefs, your attitudes, and your behavior. So the things that you do and the things that you're not doing, and how that can sometimes contribute to how you're feeling. So the depression that you experience and the anxiety that you're experiencing. So I think what I would always say to people, and I guess I said a little bit throughout this conversation, is awareness and talking is really important, but awareness of self. So when you know that you're feeling depressed or when you're feeling anxious, whatever that emotion is, stop and really ask yourself, okay, what am I thinking about? You know, what's going through my mind? And what am I doing or not doing that's keeping me in this cycle of feeling down or feeling anxious? Because sometimes, you know, we have really negative thoughts. You know, we're thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure. And then we're feeling depressed, we're feeling sad. So why not work on that thought, I'm not good enough or I'm a failure? Try and challenge that so that we can change how we're actually feeling. So I would definitely encourage people to be aware of the power of your thoughts, the power of what you think and what you believe, and the power of what you do and don't do, because sometimes they can keep us in a vicious cycle of that emotional distress that we're experiencing. And the more that you're aware of that cycle, the more that you can do something about it.
Yes. Did you read the book, The Secret?
I haven't, but I've heard lots about it. I haven't read it though.
Yes, it is a really great book. I think everyone in the world should read this book.
Yeah.
It is so powerful. It's amazing. It's really great. I really think affirmations are really good to have and to read each day because it helps your mind and it trains your mind to think positive thoughts. And so I think that people should definitely read The Secret. So if you haven't read The Secret, go out and get it. It's by Rhonda Rhimes, and she is amazing because it'll help your mental state as well. You know, depositing positivity in your mind instead of negativity. You can't help the negative things that happen in life, but try to retract your mind and think about something positive to help yourself through the situation. I mean, we all go through things. And so we're all going to get to that point where we're at our lowest moment or we go through some type of anxiety or depression, but it's all about keeping your mind healthy, you know. So thank you so much, Chanelle, for coming on, and giving us all this great advice when it comes to mental health. And guys, please reach out to her and let them know how they can connect with you.
So on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, I'm at Chanelle__Rose. So there's 2 underscores. So at Chanelle__Rose. So my screen name, basically that with 2 underscores in the middle. And I'm available on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Well, thank you so much.
For a short while though, because I'm not really a fan of Facebook.
I know. I remember you telling me that.
I had to reactivate for this show because I hadn't been on it for a while.
Yeah, I feel like my audience on Facebook is different from my audience on Instagram. So I feel like I need both. Like majority of my family is on Facebook. And so like my friends and like people who know me as a fashion designer is my following on IG. So it's like I need both, you know. Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And I look forward to continue to connect with you. And I wish you well. And hopefully one day we get to meet. I come over to.
That would be amazing.
I know. All right, guys. Well, tune in to next week. You're welcome. Tune in next week, Thursday. I will be having another show at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Bye.